Tell me timeline. Where the stuff has come from the past to current. Back in January 1860, Giuseppe Garibaldi launches the expedition of the Thousand to unify Italy. On November 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected as the 16th President of the United States. On December 1860, South Carolina becomes the first state to secede from the Union. The Second Opium War ends with ratification of the treaties of Tianjin. On 1861, the Confederate States of America is established by seceding southern states. Tsar Alexander I signs the Emancipation Reform, freeing Russian serfs. Victor Emmanuel I is proclaimed king of a newly unified Italy. The American Civil War begins with the bombardment of Fort Sumter. The French intervention in Mexico begins to establish a puppet empire. On 1862, Mexican forces defeat the French at the Battle of Puebla, Cinco de Mayo. Otto von Bismarck is appointed Prime Minister of Prussia. Abraham Lincoln issues the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. On 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation officially takes effect in the United States. Union forces win decisive victories at the Battle of Gettysburg and Vicksburg. Lincoln delivers the Gettysburg Address. On 1864, the Second Schleswig War begins between Prussia, Austria, and Denmark. The First Geneva Convention is signed, establishing rules for wounded soldiers. The Choshu Five return to Japan, accelerating the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate. Taiping Rebellion ends in China after the fall of Nanjing. General Sherman begins his devastating march to the sea in Georgia. On 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrenders at Appomattox, ending the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln is assassinated. Andrew Johnson takes office. The 13th Amendment is ratified, officially abolishing slavery in the U.S. On 1866, the Austro-Prussian War begins, deciding dominance over the German states. The Treaty of Prague ends the Austro-Prussian War. The German Confederation dissolves. On 1867, the United States purchases Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. Emperor Maximilian I of Mexico is executed, ending the Second Mexican Empire. The British North America Act creates the Dominion of Canada. The Austro-Hungarian Compromise establishes the dual monarchy. On 1868, the Meiji Restoration begins in Japan, abolishing the Tokugawa shogunate. The 14th Amendment is ratified, granting citizenship to all born in the U.S. The 10 Years' War begins as Cuba fights for independence from Spain. On 1869, the first transcontinental railroad is completed across the United States. The Suez Canal officially opens in Egypt, linking the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. On 1870, the 15th Amendment is ratified, protecting voting rights regardless of race. The Franco-Prussian War begins. Napoleon III is captured at the Battle of Sedan. The French Third Republic is declared. Italian forces capture Rome, finalizing the unification of Italy. On 1871, the German Empire is proclaimed at Versailles. Wilhelm I becomes emperor. The Paris Commune takes control of Paris before being brutally suppressed in May. The Treaty of Frankfurt officially ends the Franco-Prussian War. The Great Chicago Fire destroys roughly 4 square miles of the city. On 1872, Yellowstone National Park is established as the world's first national park. Ulysses S. Grant is re-elected President of the United States. On 1873, the Panic of 1873 triggers a severe international financial crisis and the Long Depression. The League of the Three Emperors is formed by Germany, Russia, and Austria-Hungary. On 1874, the East India Company is officially dissolved by the British Parliament. The Bourbon monarchy is restored in Spain under Alfonso XII. On 1875, Japan and Russia signed the Treaty of St. Petersburg regarding island territories. The Herzegovina-Uprising begins, sparking a wider crisis in the Ottoman Balkans. On 1876, Alexander Graham Bell receives the patent for the telephone. Indigenous Allied forces defeat the U.S. Army at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Queen Victoria is declared Empress of India. On 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes is inaugurated U.S. President, ending the Reconstruction era. The Russo-Turkish War breaks out over Ottoman territories in the Balkans. The Satsuma Rebellion ends in Japan with the death of Seigo Takamori. On 1878, the Treaty of San Stefano ends the Russo-Turkish War. The Congress of Berlin settles Balkan borders, recognizing the independence of Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania. The Second Anglo-Afghan War begins. And on 1879, the Anglo-Zulu War begins in South Africa. The War of the Pacific breaks out between Chile, Peru, and Bolivia. Thomas Edison successfully tests his incandescent electric light bulb. And that's all of the timeline.